excited to introduce you to today's speaker, Ethan Clarke, Senior VP of Client Services at AiMG Group. Welcome, Ethan.
Thank you, Rebecca. Pleasure to be here. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. We're going to be going over several things. We're going to do introductions. So first, I'm Ethan Clarke. I'm Senior VP of Client Services at AiMG Group. I've been working in digital marketing for almost 20 years, and specifically been working with higher education universities for a very long time in terms of doing performance marketing for them. We'll go over our history. We'll go over the interactive sessions and specifically some challenges, solutions for higher ed brands, and then what we've done in success in higher ed. And then we really want to open up the floor for Q&A. Specifically, we really want you to participate in a lot of the polls that we're having today, because that will help fuel the discussion as we go through our presentation. So very quickly, just so you know kind of who you're talking to today and who AiMG Group is. We've been in business for almost 16 years now. One of the things that we focus on is performance marketing, specifically in higher ed, and with the patented attribution technology. We have over $1 billion that we've managed over the years in paid media. And in 2016, we actually received a minority investment from Blackstone, and they actually helped us get our patent via consulting from the Boston Consulting Group. We were 2 times Google Agency Cup winner when they had those competitions back 2015 and 16. And really over the years, what we're very proud of is we've achieved on average 90% of our clients' KPIs exceeding their specific goals. And then on average, we also increase our clients' return on ad spend by approximately 30% when we apply our technology as well as our strategies. And quickly, we're going to do a poll. So I'm going to toss it over to Rebecca to do that poll right now. And we're going to play a quick video while you're taking that poll.
Are you tired of guessing which ads are truly driving conversions? Unsure of which media channels truly deliver results? We were too. That's why at AiMG Group, we created Atrilix, our patented attribution platform. One dashboard, all your marketing data, zero bias. Reach out to AiMG Group today. Are you tired of guessing?
So Rebecca, do you want to read the results of that poll real quick?
Absolutely. So it looks like 100% of people said yes, 20 to 30% increase in ad attributed revenue growth would be meaningful. So 100% yes, 0 no.
Awesome. Well, that's great. And that's not unexpected, right? Of course, everyone and every institution wants to increase the return ad spend. And specifically, that is what we're here to talk about today on how we achieve that, how we supercharge your enrollments, particularly from paid digital marketing, and how you make that more efficient. And how we do that as an organization is by having very strategic people, experience, making sure that when we are talking about our strategy, it's well thought out, using data-driven decisions. And then we have our own patented omni-channel reporting technology that allows us to see from one single source of truth how all of the paid media, as well as your organic traffic, are converting into actual leads and then eventually applications and enrollments. And this is an unbiased dashboard. And what I mean by that, it is not owned by Google, it's not owned by Meta, it's not owned by TikTok or X, where each of those platforms have their own reporting technology and their own way of doing attribution. And of course, a lot of those platforms are biased towards their own business model. So this is an unbiased source of truth. And then real results are really critical to making data-based decisions, particularly a user's journey's touch points on how someone is actually navigating to find your institution, how they're navigating through your site to complete a lead, and then eventually convert into an application and an enrollment. And when we're talking about our platform, there's real-time data that we are using. It tracks the entire user journey, and this enables us to know the actual results of each of the paid campaigns marketing. So the first thing that we want to talk about is actually at the basics. Not everybody on this call may actually be currently doing digital marketing, even though our stats show that the vast majority are. So the challenge is we are not currently running paid media campaigns at my institution, although we should be. Where should we start? And the solution that we have for you is start at the bottom of the funnel. If you're just getting introduced to paid digital marketing, you really want to start with something that is the highest intent. What I mean by that is paid search. And these particularly, you'd want to focus probably on Google Ads, just because that is the vast majority of the traffic. Using Bing ads is also good as well. But when you're talking about having an immediate impact, so particularly as marketers, right? And if you're in the marketing department or in the enrollment department in your institution, you need to say, report up the chain to your president or your board and say, hey, we want to try this new tactic, digital marketing. We want to see what the results of it are. Having that highest intent type of tactic like paid search, where people are physically looking for a solution in that moment, they're physically looking for a degree or a college or university that they want to attend, that's where you're going to get the highest results immediately, right? You're going to be able to see leads coming in that will hopefully convert into enrollments over time. And you'd be able to actually report that up the chain and say, hey, we invested this and got this out of it. So that's where we recommend starting. And then once you actually go from there, going up the funnel to more awareness tactics. And we'll get into that a little bit later on in our challenges and solutions section. So the next challenge that we want to talk about is, what should my initial test budget be? And what are the most impactful networks? So the solution is actually starting with the goal. One of the biggest mistakes that we see for higher education institutions, or just marketers in general, is when they're thinking about a strategic plan to generate a goal, they forget to start with the goal, right? And particularly starting with a goal in a math-based equation. So when, for example, if you want to generate 20 enrollments for a specific media buyer, specific media strategy, you want to back out and say, what is my target cost per enrollment? So for example, if your cost per enrollment target is $1,500 per enrollment, and you estimate that your lead to enrollment rate is 5%, which would mean you need to produce a $75 cost per lead. One, you need to check to make sure that's realistic for the marketing that you're doing, the audiences you're going after versus your competition. And then that would equate that you would need 400 leads to produce those 20 enrollments, which that equates to a minimum starting budget of $30,000. So a lot of times, unfortunately, institutions and marketers in general start with the budget and say, hey, we have $30,000 and we want to produce 100 enrollments from that $30,000, but they don't necessarily do the math to make sure that it works. So you should look at your enrollment rates. If you are not doing digital marketing, you should be looking at maybe your organic traffic and seeing how many leads you're getting from your organic traffic and how many of those are resulting in enrollments to get your conversion rates. And then you can actually back that out to what paid digital or paid digital strategy may produce to produce a specific goal. And then going back to the most impactful networks, bottom of the funnel, if you're just starting at search, and then you move your way up. This would be Meta, display, programmatic, and then eventually even higher funnel tactics like OTT and some of the other more broad social networks. So the next challenge is, how do I determine if the leads we're generating from digital marketing are producing enrollments? So this is a really critical challenge that a lot of universities and colleges and institutions have. Is a lot of times they're not connecting the dots between their paid digital marketing to their CRM. So this is one of the things that we focus on as an organization with our technology at Trilix, that you have to connect that. And you have to have the ability to assess the connection between the bottom of the funnel leads and which leads are producing enrollments to convert into your end goal. So tying your attribution system to your CRM is key to this. And we're going to get into exactly how we do that in a few slides here. So in our attribution technology, we are tying in every single paid digital tactic that we are running for a particular client, as well as in the organic traffic as well. And in this screenshot here, this is just the executive summary of our technology. And you can see the different color coding aspects of the conversions coming in and from what sources they are coming in from. So you'll see your email tactics, Facebook or Meta, Google, LinkedIn, Microsoft, all within one dashboard. And this, as I mentioned before, is an unbiased dashboard, meaning this is not relying on Google data, it's not relying on metadata, because in many cases, those platforms overstate what they are generating and they try and take credit for everything. So one of the simple examples that I like to give is if you're running a Meta campaign and you're running a Google campaign, and each one of them say you got 1,000 leads that came in. Well, they're saying that that's a total of 2,000 leads, but your CRM is only saying that you have 1,000 leads. So there's a big discrepancy there. And that's because each of these networks are trying to take credit for every single touch point that comes in that clicks on those networks, and thus overinflating the actual results of what you're seeing in your dashboards, in your CRM actually. And then what our solution is to actually show not only the direct conversions from those networks, but the assisted conversions from those networks. So in this example here, this is specifically for Meta. On this example campaign, we spent $30,000 and it produced 51 direct conversions. And what a direct conversion would be is if somebody clicked on that Meta ad and converted in that session and did not go anywhere else, basically like a one-click conversion, right? They clicked on Meta, decided to convert into a lead, and then submitted a lead. But what actually also was impactful for Meta is there was over 1,500 assisted leads. So when you look at this on the front end, there was 30,000 in spend, 51 direct leads, and 15,000 in direct revenue associated with these 51 leads, which on the face value, this would look like this did not perform very well. That's a 0.5 return on ad spend. But Meta actually impacted 1,500 additional leads with almost $500,000 in revenue. And that's now a 16-to-1 return on ad spend. Now, Meta in their platform is probably going to show you a much closer number to this 16x. But what we're going to show you in our system is what did it actually impact. And what I mean by that is somebody clicked on a Meta ad, did not convert in that session, left Meta, and went somewhere else and converted. And in this example here, the vast majority of them left Meta and went to Google and converted there and submitted a lead there. And then the rest went to organic, and some also went to Microsoft and converted there. And this is extremely common, particularly in higher ed, where somebody's interest is sparked by a Meta ad or a top of funnel tactic like programmatic or display. And then they go to Google or organic to do their research, particularly in higher education. Obviously, this is a big decision for everyone. It's obviously, in many cases, a large price tag for a lot of families. So it is really important that you do your research when you're deciding to submit a lead to a higher ed institution. So a lot of people don't just do that directly off a Facebook ad. They want to do their research. And that's what we see. And what is critical when we're talking about these aggregate results is the underlying data. And that's what our patent is about, is being able to actually see the entire journey that a user actually takes to generate a lead, and then track that all the way into a client's CRM system, and then track that from a lead to an application to an enrollment. So in this example here, we are seeing that the first touch point, and in this case, it was an impression, was on connected TV, and that was on 2/15. So this means that they saw the TV ad and did not convert then. The next interaction was a programmatic display ad where they clicked from on their desktop now. So they went from their smart TV to their desktop. Then they got a social prospecting ad through Meta as well and clicked on their tablet. They then went to the site organically, and this is now on the second month of their journey. And they've switched from their tablet to their mobile. They were then displayed a programmatic ad through the trade desk in April. And then they clicked on a remarketing ad on Instagram, and then searched the brand name of the university and eventually submitted a lead. And that is the last step, which every other system should show that last step of that journey. What is critical in our system is being able to see each one of those touch points. So when we report that aggregate data about how each of these networks are interacting with each other, we have this user level detail that gives us these exact figures. And this is how we add up those totals. The other critical element to this is this order ID or lead ID. And this is the actual ID that is generated by your CRM. If your CRM is not generating an ID, we can also push one in, but this is that ID that should stay constant between our system and your CRM. That way it's a one-to-one match. We are not overinflating the number of leads that are coming in. And then you can actually track which of those leads result in applications and then eventually enrollments. All of the ad network reportings, and this is the next challenge, different numbers, and they don't match my CRM. This is exactly what I was talking about in terms of our solutions here. It is really important to make sure that the attribution is capturing a lead ID. That unique ID that I showed you on that last slide is the irrefutable evidence that this lead is a singular lead. It's not from multiple sources, and it is only one lead versus 3 or 4 leads in different network reports. So this allows you to push that into your CRM system. And this also allows you to run modeling off of the leads that are generated from your paid, as well as from your organic, or maybe even your other sources as well, onto which of those leads are producing the highest rate of enrollments, as well as potentially the highest revenue for your institution. And having that one-to-one matching, particularly when you're trying to make data-based decisions, and everything these days is about making data-based decisions, you need to make sure that data is actually accurate, and that way you can be sound and confident in the decisions that you're actually making. So as I mentioned before, this is that unique ID. Now, in this example right here, this is the ID generated by the client CRM. It's under the order ID label in our lead conversion log. And we can actually see specifically what that lead generated on the client's end if they report that back to us. Now, the other critical element to this is privacy, right? And that's why having a unique anonymous ID is really critical. We know how important student privacy, general privacy in general online today is. So you don't necessarily want to use like a unique identifier like an email address, because that can be considered PII information, and you don't necessarily want to be sharing that around with outside vendors or outside sources outside of your institutions. So having that unique ID is critical to the privacy as well as to the one-to-one matching. And the next challenge we have is, how do I improve the quality of my leads that increase my enrollment rates, right? So it's great when you get a really low cost per lead online, right? You're doing digital marketing and you see you're optimizing your campaigns, or your agency is optimizing your campaigns, and you're seeing that cost per lead go down, which is in many ways the goal. But how do you know, are those leads actually resulting in quality? And this goes back to that lead ID and making sure that we're actually getting reporting back from the institution on the actual enrollment rates of those leads. So if we can start to see that the leads that are coming back from specific campaigns are resulting in a higher lead to application rate and then a higher application to enrollment rate, we can start backing out what tactics, what themes, what strategies, what keywords, what ads, what produced those specifically higher quality leads. That can then be fed back into our optimizations, or you can feed that back into your own optimizations if you're doing this in another way on your own, and improve the quality of your leads. So one of the things that we actually sometimes see is that not the lowest cost per lead campaigns are actually producing the best enrollment rates. So sometimes the higher cost per lead campaigns are actually producing a lower cost per enrollment, right? Because a lot of times when you're thinking about campaigns, like for instance, Meta lead ads, which I'm not sure how many people have used them, but sometimes you get a lot of leads from Meta lead ads, but the quality may not be there. So you may have an even higher cost per enrollment on your lowest cost per lead campaign. So that's why it's really critical to feed this information back to us if we are running your campaigns, or back to your marketing agency if they're using another way of doing this. That will enable you to focus on what sources are producing the highest enrollment rates and the best quality of leads. So the next challenge we're going to talk about is Can I see how my digital campaigns are driving call center activity? I'd like to see if the phone calls are converting into applications and enrollments. So a lot of times, digital marketers, because of the way that they do their tracking, are completely ignoring phone calls. And while it may be easier to track a web lead coming in, a lot of times people call and have questions. And those questions can result in an actual application and an enrollment. So if you are actually on your end in your CRM system, recording those calls and tying those caller IDs to the potential student record, you're able to then back it out to your digital marketing that are producing that calls. So what we use for our campaigns are what called ring pools, which that means every single time that somebody comes into the website from a paid tactic, the phone number changes on the website. That enables us to back out the keyword, the ad, the tactic, the source, and then also any touch points that got them there before that. And that enables us to then have a specific record of that call that came in. And the unique identifier that we use in this instance, instead of a lead ID, we use the caller ID. And that is then associated with that record that can be pushed into the client's CRM. So similar to what I showed you before on the lead ID report, where a institution is able to report back to us which leads or web leads are producing applications and enrollments, same can be true for call attribution as well. This can also be really critical for understanding and moving the needle on enrollment, because a lot of times institutions are ignoring the phone calls that may be coming in from a marketing optimization perspective. You may be able to also discover that the calls are on hold for a long time, maybe not even being answered properly, maybe going to a voicemail. And when you have this data, it enables you to look at this and say, is this a good source for generating enrollments for us and increasing our enrollments? And then which tactics are actually producing more phone calls into our admissions offices? And do we limit those tactics to only run during business hours or when the office can actually answer calls? So you can use a lot of information that can help improve, one, the student experience when they're calling, but also increase your enrollment rates if you also focus on what is actually producing phone calls from your digital marketing campaign and how those are performing when it comes to actual enrollments. Now, the next challenge and solution we're going to talk about is the majority of my leads are produced from Google brand searches or organic traffic. How do I determine what non-branding tactics or upper funnel tactics are generating leads or enrollments? And this is really the classic digital marketing challenge, not only for higher education institutions, but really all digital marketers out there and brands. People find out about your brand name and they search your brand name either on paid search and click on the ad or go to your site organically, right? And when a CMO or the CEO or the president of your institution is looking at the reports and saying, well, why are we spending all this money on these upper funnel awareness tactics? Everybody's just converting on our brand name. Well, they may not know about your brand name unless you do those upper funnel tactics. But the critical element is understanding, as we showed you before in the journey, how people are actually converting from upper funnel tactics to bottom of the funnel tactics. So if they are seeing a connected TV ad, for instance, are they then going and doing a search and clicking on your site organically and then converting and then being able to tie that back to that awareness tactic? Because doing general awareness is important, but you also want to make sure that you're targeting it to the right people, the right audiences that will actually convert into enrollments. So if you're able to take an awareness tactic like connected TV, like programmatic, like social media, like display, like YouTube, all of these upper funnel tactics that generate great awareness for a university, you also want to make sure they're creating the right awareness that are actually driving enrollments. So backing it out to seeing which of those tactics are generating assisted leads that result in enrollments allow you to not only optimize your upper funnel tactics, but turn those awareness tactics into performance tactics. And that's really what is critical to increasing enrollments while looking at a full funnel journey. And the next challenge is, how can I best evaluate performance from new digital tactics on enrollments like connected TV, for example? So if you are familiar with obviously the trends of cord cutting and obviously the audiences that most of you are going after, which are a younger audience, most of them are not watching linear cable anymore, right? They're streaming TV, whether that's on their tablet or their smart TV. These tactics are not clickable, right? They are an impression. You hope that they maybe scan the QR code or maybe type in the vanity URL that you put in your connected TV ad, or they just remember your brand name, your institution's name, and they do a search later on. Having the ability to have an impression-based attribution technology like Acrylics, like what we offer, is really critical to this. Because if you're not doing this, you may be spending thousands, maybe even millions of dollars on connected TV or upper funnel tactics, and not necessarily knowing which are producing the types of leads that they should be. So what we do is we capture the actual impression ID of every single impression that are served on a connected TV device or on a smart TV or on any other impression style campaigns like programmatic. And then we look at, did that impression occur before a paid click on an actual other paid tactic or an organic click? And then within our attribution models, we are then backing out to say this impression occurred prior to the paid click. So the attribution is then given back to the original awareness tactic. And this is an example of that here, where the first view was on connected TV. Then they did a non-branded search on their second visit. Then the third visit was on Meta. And then the fourth visit was actually a direct entry. And you can see this highlighted visitor ID here. This is what stays consistent throughout each of these touch points. And that is what is tied back to the original impression ID. And then we can also see the pages that they went to on the website, how they interacted, as well as their location, and many other data points about that particular user. So taking an awareness tactic and then going back to what is actually producing the actual enrollments coming in are really critical to understanding the actual performance of your awareness tactics. So the next things we're going to go into is just a quick overview of just some of the success that we've had in the higher education industry. Really appreciate you taking the time to listen to some of our challenges, solutions. We've applied these strategies when looking at each of our higher ed clients. These are just a few that we have here in our example. Nova Southeastern, we've been running with them for almost 7 years now. Over time, we produced a 117% increase in their conversion rate from lead to application to enrollment. And then also with Berkeley College, we've produced a 57% increase in conversion rate as well, all using the proven tactics that we've been able to apply across all of our marketing, and particularly tracking that to make sure that what we are putting forth in our strategy is actually working. Starting with the goal first, then backing out the strategy, and then testing that strategy with data, right? Everybody can have a great opinion about what will work best, but when you actually run it through an unbiased dashboard that enables you to see, did your plan, did your strategy, did the tactics that you put forth actually result in what you expected, or how do you actually have to tweak it along the way to keep improving? And that's when you have accurate data, when you have matching data between your marketing system and your CRM and your admissions offices, what they're actually seeing on their end as well. It really allows you to make those bigger database decisions and really move the needle when it comes to conversions. So Rebecca, I think we're going to now open it up to Q&A, right?
Yes, we will get started with Q&A, so please feel free to put your questions into that Q&A box. I also did want to report on a different poll that we had opened, and 100% of the people did say that the issues and the challenges you presented represent their real world issues that they grapple with at their institution. So awesome. Let's go ahead and get into the questions. The first question that I see is, what is an average lead to enrollment rate?
That's really going to depend on what type of students you're going after, undergrad versus graduate. That's going to be really different for every single institution. Obviously, if you are a highly selective institution, your lead to enrollment rate will actually be potentially lower because you're not taking in all of the leads that would necessarily qualify for your institution. And if afterwards we can have a discussion about who your institution is targeting, whether it's undergraduate or post-grad. Are you a for-profit, or are you a nonprofit? Are you a highly selective institution or more of an open institution? Then I could probably get to a more specific answer for you, but it will vary with a lot of those variables.
All right. The next question that I see is, how are you navigating data privacy concerns?
So we are fully GDPR compliant. We're also fully compliant with the California law as well as any US laws when it comes to privacy. So when we talk about attribution, obviously we're living in a post-cookie world with the iOS updates that happened several years ago. That also was a big disruptor in the market. We use 17 different data points, particularly using IP addresses, device ID, household identifiers, and many more data points to hone in on the devices, because devices are not private, right? A person is a private person, but the devices that they use and the searches that they do, the things that they interact with, allow you to build a profile on that particular device. And then once that device goes to a household where it connects to other devices, you can start to create a profile on that household. And that's how you're able to, one, do it completely privately and compliant with the law, but as well as hone in on accurate data.
All right. The next question that I see is, I work at a smaller institution and we don't have the strongest brand recognition. Do you have suggestions for how awareness campaigns might factor into all of this? And is there a way for you to measure the impact those upper funnel campaigns are having on enrollments?
Yeah, so it's important to get your brand out there, right? And when you're thinking about upper funnel tactics, think about the audience that you're trying to reach, right? Don't just say, I'm going to put this out on every billboard or every ad network that's out there and hope that those people will enroll in my institution. Think about who your target audience is, what their age is, what their household income are, what their interests are. Are you going after the student themselves, or are you going after their parent? And then you can focus your awareness tactic with a performance in mind. Particularly if you have budget constraints, you want to make sure that you're creating the awareness to the audiences that will actually enroll. And that way you're being as efficient and cost effective with your targeting to make sure that that then translates to likely a search on Google or going to your site organically, and then eventually converts into a lead and enrollment. So be niche with your awareness if you have budget constraints, but make sure that you're applying an attribution technology that allows you to track that awareness from awareness to lead generation to enrollment.
Awesome. Right. The next question is, can you go over some of the insights you get from the user journey? And does the platform provide suggestions or insights on how to improve your efforts based on those findings?
Yeah, so the platform is not only a reporting attribution tool, it's an app optimization attribution tool as well. So one of the things that we look at just top level is top converting paths, meaning what tactics did people take or users take to generate the quickest path to conversion? And then did that conversion, particularly when we're getting the data back from institution, result in an application or an enrollment? So that's some of the really important insights. That also helps inform our remarketing strategies, right? Because when you're trying to move the needle from initial touch point to an actual conversion, when they don't convert on that first initial touch point, it allows you to build out your remarketing strategy. And then when we try to over time is actually shortening that path to conversion, right? particularly when you're talking about paid media, each one of those touch points might cost your institution a click or a cost per impression. So you actually want to try and minimize the path to conversion as the least number of clicks or interactions to generate a lead. And then when we look at actual website data, why they may not be converting from those initial touch points. So if we see that people are going to certain pages within the website based on the initial touch point and then dropping off, how can we, one, potentially improve the website to get them to convert quicker, right? So for instance, if the form is hard to find, they're coming into the website and they have to click through 3 or 4 pages to get to the actual form, and that's a pattern that we're seeing with the data, that will obviously inform us to make that recommendation to maybe test using landing pages instead of driving to the regular website. So there's a lot that you can glean from the data to help improve your conversion rates over time.
All right, next question is, does your platform provide the same insights for organic campaigns?
So in terms of it can for our organic social, a lot of what our platform is based on is click data or impression data when the ad is served through a programmatic DSP, for instance. So click data we can get off of any organic channel. So if you were doing, for instance, social posts, and you were putting a link in your social posts, we'd be able to track, did somebody interact with that social post, and then convert into maybe a enrollment later on. The only challenge occurs when you're talking about like just organic posts that don't have a web link in them. If you're just posting things on social media, for instance, and you're not linking that to somebody taking an action that clicks, Meta and these platforms try to keep those things kind of as a black box internally to be able to then keep that data internally. So anything that clicks out, we can do attribution for, and any impression that is served through a programmatic, whether it's connected TV or programmatic or streaming audio, we can do it off of impression as well. We do also, in many times, universities or other brands that we work with have vanity URLs that they are using, whether it's in their linear TV or their influencers or their blog posts. And as long as those are tagged properly, we can then attribute it back to those initial organic sources as well. So we really encourage that. We can also integrate email into our attribution as well. So if you're pushing out emails for remarketing or prospecting, and you're putting links in those emails that enable you to take an action after somebody opens an email, we can put those in our attribution funnels as well. So there's a lot that we can do as long as we are thoughtful about how the tracking is set up.
Awesome. All right, the next question, and I can repeat it, it's a little long, so just let me know. What is your estimated level of accuracy in terms of attribution from upper funnel tactics, say CCTV, to bottom of funnel conversion on search? What data point do you use as a metric to identify the user while still being mindful of P2?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, we use 17 different data points to hone in on the devices that are doing these actions and then connecting those to a household. So there is going to be some instances where an IP address, for instance, if I'm searching at work, right, that is a shared IP address. And that in those instances, we're trying to rely on the device IDs. So there is going to be some instance where that drops off. We are not the CIA, we're not the NSA. We can't track everybody's actions all the time. We also have to comply. If people drop their cookies in certain instances, that eliminates some tracking people don't accept on a website, right? That allows us to be compliant with GDPR. I can get into some specific percentages offline with this particular user and share that. I'm bringing my tech team to give me some really accurate stats there, but we try to be as specific as possible, all within the legal constraints of privacy laws.
All right. The next question is, I believe, a reference to you mentioning a cookieless world, but how does your platform get affected in a cookieless world?
Yeah, well, as I mentioned before, we have set this up to not rely on cookies. If we can, we still do use cookies for attribution. So if we can have a cookie in there, it even bolsters our attribution even further. But without the cookies, we are using device IDs, IP addresses, household identifiers, creating profiles on users to be able to hone in on the devices that are in a specific location that did specific actions. And that enables us to beyond cookies.
Awesome. All right, we have 2 more questions that I see left, but if anyone has anything else, now would be the time to add it into the Q&A. So let's get to the last 2 questions. This one is, when advertising an undergraduate degree, our target market is mostly under 18. Is it still possible to target ads at this age group, or are there age limitations blocking it?
Well, yes, certain networks do have restrictions, right? And obviously the laws are coming out even more so. Now, when you're talking about streaming TV and programmatic, you can certainly target people that are of a younger audience. The social networks are the ones that are becoming much more restrictive. Obviously, paid search on Google Ads, that's not limited by any age. So you definitely still want to be there when it comes to targeting that younger audience. And particularly when you're thinking about targeting not only the younger students, also targeting the parents, right? And how you're targeting them can be really critical, right? For instance, if you want to be targeting younger students, maybe you're not targeting them on Meta, right? Maybe not targeting them on Facebook. You're targeting the parents on Facebook, and you're targeting the students on TikTok and Snapchat and maybe even YouTube, right? So there's ways to be strategic about targeting those younger audiences, all within the constraints of how these networks are setting up their ad restrictions for teens.
Awesome. Okay, cool. And then I see more questions are coming in. This is why I throw that little thing out there. The next question is, what is the smallest size client or budget size you target or would work with?
So we really try and keep our media investments at a minimum of about 20,000 per month. But we also work with universities and institutions that have the room to grow, right? The thing that because it takes a lot of work to set up our technology and make sure we have a full team that is backing every single one of our campaigns to run it. We need to make sure that's obviously a viable thing for our organization. But we also understand that an institution wants to try something first and allow it to grow. So some of the clients that we are now running the entire digital marketing for their entire institution started out with one department, right? The College of Business or the College of Education. And then it grew from there. So we will take a case-by-case basis that may be at or maybe slightly below our normal minimums. What we're try to look at is how we can grow an institution and make sure that also that the campaign is set up for success. So one of the challenge and the solution slides that we had before is understanding what the goal of your marketing is, right? If you have a goal that doesn't match the budget, we need to obviously have a mathematical discussion about that, and then come up with a realistic goal that matches the target budget that you have in your marketing plan.
All right. And then the last question that I see is, we already work with an agency. Is there a way for us to work with AiMG?
Yes. So we play very nice in the sandbox with a lot of other ad agencies. About 50 to 60% of our business actually comes from other ad agencies. We are the digital arm for their ad agency. And we've also worked in instances in terms of like a la carte reporting, where we're maybe doing the media buys for programmatic and connected TV, and that other agency is focused on paid search. And as long as we are connecting everything, we can kind of play nice in the sandbox and make sure that we're showing that full attribution. That is a case-by-case basis, but it is something that we've done frequently over the years.
Awesome. Well, that looks like all the questions that I see. So I just wanted to give a quick thank you, Ethan, for that presentation and for being here with us today. And thanks to AI Media Group for sponsoring this webinar. As a reminder, the session will be available on demand, and you'll be receiving a link to the on-demand content within 24 hours. Before you go, I'd like to draw your attention to the session survey now available. We'd love to hear your feedback. There is also one last poll that I just opened, so go vote on that when you have the chance as well. Thank you everyone for joining, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, and I want to thank you all. I would love for you all to connect with me on LinkedIn too. So if you take out your phone, scan that QR code, that'll go right to my LinkedIn profile. I'd love to connect with you. We'll obviously be sharing a lot of more educational information. And of course, you can email me as well. And thank you, Rebecca, and to the entire AMA organization. We loved your conference in Vegas last week, and I hope that I can't see any of you on this live stream, but I hope some of the people that I actually met in person are here as well. And we can't wait to go to the next one. So thank you, Rebecca, and thank you to AMA for this great experience.